Hi guys, it's Chris with City Girl Homestead. And time for a video that I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to say, but first I want to premise that I love everybody in all the countries, and I hope that you're so very, very proud of where you're from and your people and everything else. So I don't want everybody to think that, the USA, we think we're better than everybody. Although I do think the United States of America is the greatest country in the world. And I feel blessed to have been born here. So I wanted to do a video on how I feel about the US from being a child to now nearly 60 years old. And to point out what I feel the USA is all about. So I was born in November of 1966. And my grandfather, on my mom's side, was born in 1900, May of 1900. So I do know people that were born in the 1800s. I met a couple of my uncles, actually, that were born in like 1890, 1880, something like that, but old. And they were older when I met them, obviously, if my grandpa was 66. I was born in a small town called Alma and raised for a long time in Crystal and spent all my summers, spring breaks, everything else in a small town called Vesterberg. And I remember growing up and we didn't grill out. Someone asked about grills, so I've never really liked grilled food or anything, but on the 4th of July, friends and family would get together and they'd bring their burgers and hot dogs, and all the ladies would make all different kinds of salads and stuff, and we would celebrate. We didn't do a lot of fireworks or anything like that until I got a little bit older, and they had them over in Crystal. But what makes me love our country, let me tell you a few stories. So I know that when we were going through war to earn our independence, I know that men died by the thousands to live our experiment, live our dream. And I didn't find this out until I was a little bit older, but instead of letting our flag fall, men would put their bodies there and they would stand knowing that they were going to get shot and killed, so that our flag never hit the ground, never surrendered. And think about that. You're never going to go home because you gave up your body to hold up that flag. I have to wonder now, there's so many people that don't love the U.S. and it's showing. It makes us crack. And that's really sad to see. Does the U.S. have, dark patches that I wished would never have happened? Yeah, we do. A lot of them. Do we still have some? Yes, we do. But a lot of people fought to get rid of some of those dark patches. We tried to come together as a country and to keep the country going. But growing up in a small town, I can remember men from different wars, and, well, there was a guy down the street that I think it was self-inflicted, but after war he couldn't handle it, and he survived it in his head, and he would walk by my grandma's every morning with a limp and a cane. I remember a lot of women that cried that their sons weren't coming home, that they had fought the ultimate battle and they had lost. Yet our country survived. People would come together. With knowing people from all those different generations, and living in small town all the way up to now living in the city, longing to go back to the country, I can remember as a little girl, and remind you, this is what I think about the U.S. If someone is in trouble, they didn't think, are you a Republican, Democrat, Independent, nothing like that. If something happened to somebody's barn or whatever, you know what? Everybody in the community, they pool together and they help take care of that person. If someone was hurt or sick, I can remember our church, they would deliver food to people Sunday after church service and bring them something to eat. There was such an amazing community. You know, people pooled together. It didn't matter what your beliefs were or weren't. They just looked out for each other. Back then, you knew your neighbors. You know, you could go, and it's so funny, until they all started passing away, they'd all go, Doris? And I'm like, no, I'm her daughter. And, you know, they could remember my mom. And so automatically it put their focus on me, because I looked a lot like my mom. I can remember at school still doing prayers, and then I find out later in life that that was supposed to stop. And, well, at Vesterberg it didn't. We prayed before we ate. I remember every day putting our hands to our hearts and saying the Pledge of Allegiance. And little did I know how much that actually would mean years and years down the road. Not that we didn't have issues and we didn't have fights and we didn't, you know, have all those things, but I think life was good. You worked hard. You know, we were taught at a young age to, you know, help in the garden and the fields and do chores. And, you know, you used to always say, oh, you know, you hated doing all that. But they were teaching us to be independent and strong and able. I can remember what it looked like when they would, you know, pick all this stuff and then they would process it so that, you know, we could have it later on down the road. I remember being told as a little girl, you can be anything that you want to be, including the President of the United States. Even back then, I think they had the idea that someday there will be a woman president. I don't know. But we were pushed to the belief that anything can happen. You live in the U.S. You can do or be anything that you want. You can be a housewife. You can be a mom. You could be the President of the United States. And people would work so hard to maintain that dream and that philosophy. We come from a country that on Sundays, I can remember, you know, going to church and a farmer with his bibbed overalls would come in straight off the tractor and come in and, you know, worship. I can remember a time that just about everything was closed on Sundays because we were supposed to worship and have family time, because the rest of the days everybody worked really hard. My dad, when he first started working at GM, you know, they fought for the union and everything because it wasn't just for money. It was because of safety. People died daily on the lines. And so we had progress. Do I like all the progress that's coming along? No, I don't. I think all the progress has led to, you know, everybody thinks they're communicating so much more because they can text and they can do this and they can do that. But I think we've forgotten how to just talk to each other and see each other and learn about our neighbors and our friends. I know that now, and a lot of people still do, boy, if you start singing the Star Spangled Banner, women's hands go up to their hearts, men's hats come off, because we know the price that's been paid to maintain our freedom. It was a big price, and it continues to be. We're an experiment, and hopefully that experiment one day, you know, well, I don't know that I want the experiment to ever be over with. I don't like some of the things that are happening now because I want it to stay the U.S. But with the experiment, we keep using our ingenuity and our brain power to make things better and to do things more, and that seems awesome to me. I can remember the summer days, and Tom and I were talking about that yesterday. Our bikes were our freedom. We took the boys out we took my youngest son and my grandsons and daughter-in-law out to dinner last night. We got a really big storm, and we were eating while it was happening, so it wasn't such a big deal. And my son pointed how big this water puddle had gotten in the parking lot. So my grandsons, they had the Crocs on. I goes, you guys want to go play? And my son never told me no, nothing. So I led them into the parking lot, and there was this great big old puddle, and they stood there, and I go, run through it, come on. And then we got to the last time, and they got out. And so it made me think about the times where, our bikes were our freedom. And sometimes you'd hit those water puddles, and it'd be so much on the spokes that it'd tip you over. I can remember how many times we'd ride our bikes to the lake or to walk out there or do whatever. So even as a young child, you think about that freedom. Even if it's riding your bikes through. I can't tell you all the stuff we rode our bikes through. The U.S. makes me feel like I don't worry about every morning waking up to know if we're being bombed. Or, things like that. And that's important. I know that, we can go to hospitals and doctors, and our babies can be born, and they take care of the babies, and, I know that there's still a genuine love for one another. And during this World Cup, we can find that so many other countries really do find out that we're an amazing country as well. I've been to Canada, and I've thought about taking, cruises, but then COVID happened, and I'm like, ugh. But we also talked about that yesterday. A lot of the reasons I don't really travel out of the country is because we have 50 states here, and I've only been to 26 of them. And there are so many things that I have not seen yet here. I want to go up in the East Coast, and I want to see where our country was founded and all the history that there is there. If you can remember history, you can either repeat it or not. Things can benefit or not. That's going to be our choices. The sacrifices that men and women have made for years and years and years to keep this experiment going. And I want to honor those people today. Some came home in boxes. Some didn't come home at all. Some came home and were wounded and never fixed. Some, the mental was just incredible, and, that's bad too. There's some that came home and they're great. And I want to thank all those men and women that did that for us, even back before we were completely a country. Thank you so much for giving us the chance that you were willing to give your life for us to keep our freedoms, our independence. I've always thought about us, in the 4th of July, but with it being 250 years this year, I really am beginning to wonder what that freedom and that independence really does mean. I remember my uncle, he did several tours in Vietnam. And when Desert Storm happened, he said, I'd go back today. And he dealt with a lot after coming back from Vietnam, a lot. But he goes, if they call me up to train or to go over, I'll do it. I've had my dad and my brother and my nephew, and, cousins and uncles and all that serve in the military, friends, family, whatever, and they do it willingly, and they love our country. And they're willing to lay their lives down 250 years later to protect this experiment, to protect our independence. Thank you for those people as well. I think my love of country came, though, as a child. I really do. Because independence in your country, all that is wrapped up in who we are as a people. We're such a diverse group. We have people from all over the world that live here. All over the world. We have different nationalities, ethnicities, religious beliefs. Just, we are truly a melting pot. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud that I have friends from all different walks of life. From, dirt poor to, I do know a few rich people. Not very many of those, but we're a diverse country, and I hope and pray that the people that don't love us anymore inside our own country, that they'll look at the past and see that we're trying to heal from it, to build on it, to be better. That what we have here is worth fighting for. What we have in this country is worth loving. I don't ever want to forget those, olden day times with me where we had community, we had love, we had respect. We had love of God, love of country, love of humans. I hope that we never completely lose that. I know I thought about the Star Spangled Banner, and you put your hands to your heart, and when you do your Pledge of Allegiance, you put your hands to your heart. And when I hear the Star Spangled Banner, a lot of times I'll start to tear up. I don't want to lose the country that we have. I want it to be better and enduring. I don't ever want to lose the freedoms that we have. I know that there's a few military songs and whatever, and there's another one, and that's TAPS. And I still flinch every time I hear the guns go off. And even if you mean not to cry, you do. Because with that TAPS, it's final. The person that you loved is gone forever. And the firing of that gun tells you that. I remember my dad's funeral staying completely, keeping my composure until that happened. My brothers. When you hear that, you know that it's final. I don't want to hear the TAPS for our country. I want to continue to hear the Star Spangled Banner. I want to continue to see children that still do the Pledge of Allegiance. My grandson does. I still want to see people that are proud and not ashamed of our country. So much for the heavy duty stuff. I want people to still vote. Even if you think your vote doesn't count. Still vote. Still stand up, go to meetings, and try to keep the country the way that you feel that it should be run. Stand up as a nation and fight for our freedoms and our independence. I don't mean hurting each other, by the way, when I say fight. But never give in. Never give up. I do love each and every one of you, and it doesn't matter where you're from, who you are. I do love you. because past the United States, we have an entire world, and we're all the same people. Doesn't matter if our skin color is different or what our beliefs are different. We all bleed red. And today and every day, I am so proud of the U.S., flaws and all. So happy 250th USA. Know that you're still loved so much by so many of us. We respect you and love you, and I'm trying not to cry. Thank you for listening. And I hope any of it made sense. I didn't write anything down, nothing like that. So, you know, if you still love the U.S., make sure you comment below and why. You know, and if you're out celebrating today, remember what we're celebrating. It's not about just the fireworks. Celebrate your family and your loved ones, your friends. Say hi to your neighbors. Love on each other. Let's get another 250 years going. How's that? So you guys all have a blessed day. Be a blessing. And we'll see you tomorrow.